Did you know that there is a mysterious figure in the Bible that defies all religious and political conventions? Melchizedek, the king without genealogy, can completely change your view on faith. You will understand why this enigmatic character is the key to unlocking millennial secrets that connect the Old and New Testaments. Melchizedek is a figure who appears briefly in the Scriptures, but his importance and mystery stand out impressively. His introduction in the Bible, without genealogy or detailed explanations, already causes a significant impact. Reading about him, one realizes that he defies all conventions of the religious and political leaders of the time. It is uncommon to find a character who is both a king and a priest, and this duality is what makes Melchizedek fascinating. The enigma surrounding him makes us think about the depth of the Scriptures and the hidden messages we can discover. His appearance occurs suddenly, without clear or detailed historical context, which only increases the fascination with this figure. He is first mentioned in the book of Genesis, when he meets Abraham, bringing with him an aura of mystery and respect. This meeting takes place in a context of victory and celebration, after Abraham had won a significant battle. Melchizedek, the king of Salem, offers Abraham bread and wine, a gesture that goes beyond simple hospitality and carries deep spiritual symbolism. The brevity of the mentions of Melchizedek does not diminish his relevance. On the contrary, each reference to him is laden with meaning and implies an importance that surpasses the written words. His description as King of Righteousness and King of Peace is something that few biblical characters possess. These designations are not just titles, but reflect intrinsic qualities of his personality and mission. Melchizedek, therefore, is not just a historical character, but a symbol of elevated virtues and an eternal priesthood. The mystery of his origin is another aspect that intrigues scholars and readers of the Bible. Unlike other biblical characters, there is no detailed genealogy of Melchizedek. This is particularly notable in a text that values lineages and descent so much. His absence of genealogy suggests an existence that transcends time and human traditions, reinforcing his image as an eternal and divine figure. The lack of concrete information about his origins and end only increases the mysticism surrounding him. Melchizedek appears as a solitary figure, not associated with any specific tribe, and this distinguishes him from other religious and political leaders in the Bible. He is independent, a priest who does not belong to any known order, raising many questions about the nature of his priesthood. This uniqueness points to something greater, a direct connection with the divine that is not mediated by human structures. This independence and direct connection with God make Melchizedek a precursor to theological concepts that would be developed later. His title of King of Salem is equally significant, as Salem is commonly identified with Jerusalem, the city that would become central in the religious and spiritual history of various traditions. As King of Salem, Melchizedek is associated not only with peace, shalom, but also with a geographical location that would become a focal point for faith. This association reinforces his unique position as a figure of peace and justice, whose actions and titles resonate through the centuries. Melchizedek's story is also a story of divine interactions. His blessing to Abraham is one of the most significant passages, as it demonstrates spiritual authority recognized by Abraham, who was a highly respected patriarch. This blessing is not just a symbolic act, but a confirmation of Abraham's mission and victory, highlighting the connection between the divine and the human. Melchizedek, therefore, acts as a mediator, someone who brings the presence of God and confirms his promises through his actions. The symbolism of the bread and wine offered by Melchizedek to Abraham is profound and multifaceted. These elements are seen as symbols of physical and spiritual sustenance, prefiguring Christ's Last Supper. The act of sharing bread and wine is a representation of communion and unity, something that transcends time and cultures. It is a gesture that strengthens bonds and reaffirms alliances, both human and divine. Melchizedek, with this simple act, establishes a connection that resonates with profound and lasting theological meanings. The New Testament makes an explicit connection between Melchizedek and Jesus Christ, especially in the letter to the Hebrews. Here, Melchizedek is seen as a prefiguration of Christ, highlighting the universality and eternity of Jesus' priesthood. This comparison not only elevates the figure of Melchizedek, but also helps clarify aspects of Christ's mission and nature. The priesthood, according to the order of Melchizedek, is presented as superior to the Levitical priesthood because it is eternal and divinely ordained. This places Melchizedek as a key to understanding the new covenant introduced by Jesus. Melchizedek also challenges traditional notions of leadership, showing that true spiritual authority is not in lineages or human traditions, but in the direct connection with the divine. He is a reminder that spiritual power and justice are not found in institutions, but in integrity and communion with God. Melchizedek, through his brief appearance, teaches a powerful lesson about the true nature of leadership and divine service. The figure of Melchizedek serves as a point of reflection on the nature of priesthood and kingship. His duality as a king and priest without specific genealogy resonates as a symbol of divine purity and legitimacy. This rare and significant combination points to a divine order that goes beyond human conventions. The absence of a detailed genealogy underlines his unique and inimitable position, making him a model for spiritual and moral leadership that transcends generations. Furthermore, Melchizedek's importance is reinforced by how he is treated in later scriptures. His figure is revisited and expanded, especially in the New Testament texts, which place him in an even more significant light. This continuous relevance of Melchizedek throughout the Bible underlines his theological importance and the depth of his impact. He is not just a historical figure, but an archetype of eternal and universal spiritual values. Melchizedek's enigmatic presence in the Bible also leads us to question and explore the depths of faith and spirituality. He represents the unknown, the mystery that invites us to a deeper search for divine understanding. Melchizedek challenges us to look beyond appearances and conventions and seek a richer and more meaningful understanding of our faith. He is an invitation to mystery and wonder, a figure who reminds us that not everything is meant to be fully understood, but that the quest for understanding is a sacred journey in itself. Finally, Melchizedek leaves us with a sense of awe and respect. His figure is a reminder of the depth and complexity of the scriptures and the richness of the stories they contain. He is a figure who, despite his brief mention, leaves a lasting and significant impact. Melchizedek teaches us about the nature of spiritual power, true leadership, and communion with the divine, offering a perspective that is both ancient and eternally relevant. His story, although short, is an invitation to explore and understand more deeply the mysteries of faith. Looking at the connection with Abraham, we see how these elements intertwine to form a grand biblical narrative. Melchizedek emerges in the biblical narrative in a surprising and impactful way, meeting Abraham right after a significant victory. This event is recorded in the book of Genesis, chapter 14, and takes place in the valley of Shava, also known as the King's Valley. Abraham, returning from the battle against Chedorlaomer and the allied kings, is greeted by Melchizedek, who is described as the King of Salem and priest of the Most High God. This first interaction between the two characters is marked by profound symbolism and historical importance. Abraham, after rescuing his nephew Lot and recovering the plundered goods, is approached by Melchizedek, who brings bread and wine. This gesture of hospitality and sustenance is not just an act of kindness, but carries a profound spiritual significance. The offering of bread and wine by Melchizedek is seen as a symbol of communion and divine blessing, a moment that transcends simple physical need and connects to the spiritual. This event marks the beginning of a special relationship between Melchizedek and Abraham, highlighting the importance of hospitality and sharing in divine contexts. The encounter is brief but full of meaning. Melchizedek not only offers bread and wine to Abraham but also blesses him. He proclaims, "Blessed be Abraham by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." This blessing not only recognizes Abraham's victory, but also exalts God's role in the battle and in Abraham's life. Melchizedek, with his position as priest of the Most High God, acts as a mediator between God and Abraham, reaffirming the divine connection and the patriarch's mission. Abraham's response to Melchizedek is equally significant. Abraham gives Melchizedek a tithe of everything, a tenth of the recovered goods. This act of giving symbolizes reverence and recognition of Melchizedek's spiritual authority. Giving a tithe to a priest was a common practice of recognition and gratitude, but the fact that Abraham does this with Melchizedek, a priest of an unconventional order, underscores the uniqueness and importance of this enigmatic figure. This gesture is a recognition of the legitimacy of Melchizedek's priesthood and the blessing he confers. Melchizedek's presence in the Valley of Shava is shrouded in mystery, as he appears and disappears from the narrative without much explanation. His origin and destiny are not detailed, leaving room for speculation and interpretation. However, his brief appearance is enough to establish a powerful and lasting connection with Abraham. The interaction between them is a focal point in biblical history, highlighting the importance of faith, obedience, and recognition of the divine. Melchizedek, as priest and king, represents a spiritual and temporal authority that transcends the common categories of the time. His blessing to Abraham is an act of legitimizing Abraham's mission and a confirmation of divine protection and favor. This interaction not only solidifies Abraham's position as God's chosen one, but also establishes Melchizedek as a figure of great spiritual and historical relevance. The mutual recognition between the two leaders is a testament to the importance of faith and righteous leadership. The Valley of Shava, where this meeting occurs, becomes a place of great historical and spiritual importance. It is in this setting that the connection between the divine and the human is reinforced, and where Abraham receives confirmation of his mission and divine blessing. Melchizedek's role in this context is crucial, as he acts as the intermediary who connects Abraham to God, offering physical and spiritual sustenance through bread and wine, and blessing him in the name of the Most High God. Although Melchizedek appears briefly, he leaves an indelible mark on the biblical narrative. His interaction with Abraham is a moment of convergence between the spiritual and the temporal, and highlights the importance of faith and righteous leadership. Melchizedek, as priest and king, offers a vision of a priesthood that is eternal and universal, transcending traditional lineages and establishing a new paradigm of spiritual leadership. The relevance of this encounter goes beyond mere historical narrative. Melchizedek is later mentioned in the Scriptures, both in the Old and New Testaments, reinforcing his importance and the lasting impact of his blessing and interaction with Abraham. This first encounter is a precursor to future events and symbolizes the continuity of the divine promise and righteous and blessed leadership. Melchizedek's blessing to Abraham is a moment of confirmation and celebration. It is a recognition of Abraham's victory and the divine presence and favor in his life. Melchizedek, as an enigmatic and powerful figure, acts as a symbol of justice, peace, and spiritual authority. This encounter is a testament to the importance of faith, obedience, and righteous leadership, and establishes a pattern for future divine and human interactions in the Scriptures. Melchizedek and Abraham, through this encounter, leave us a legacy of faith and leadership that resonates through the generations. The Valley of Shava becomes a sacred place, a testament to divine blessing and the importance of spiritual and righteous leadership. The interaction between these two leaders is a moment of convergence between the divine and the human, and establishes a precedent for future manifestations of divine presence and favor in biblical history. Now, let's explore the profound symbolism contained in Melchizedek's gesture of offering bread and wine to Abraham. When Melchizedek offers bread and wine to Abraham, he performs a gesture full of symbolism and profound meanings. These elements, simple at first glance, carry a spiritual and symbolic weight that transcends the immediate context of the biblical narrative. Bread and wine are not merely food. They represent physical and spiritual sustenance, as well as pointing to future events of great importance in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Bread, for example, is a universal symbol of sustenance and life. In the biblical context, it appears repeatedly as essential food provided by God for His people. From manna in the desert to the bread of the presence in the temple, bread symbolizes divine provision and God's faithfulness in nourishing His people. When Melchizedek offers bread to Abraham, he is not only providing physical sustenance after the battle, but also symbolically reinforcing the idea that God will provide for all of Abraham's needs. Wine, on the other hand, is often associated with joy, celebration, and spiritual renewal. In the Old Testament, wine is a symbol of blessing and prosperity, often linked to religious and social festivities. When Melchizedek offers wine to Abraham, he is not only providing a drink for the celebration of victory, but also suggesting spiritual renewal and a reaffirmation of communion with God. Thus, wine becomes a symbol of joy and God's blessed presence in Abraham's life. Besides their immediate connotations, the bread and wine offered by Melchizedek to Abraham prefigure a central event in Christian faith, the Last Supper of Jesus with his disciples. On that occasion, Jesus used bread and wine to institute the Eucharist, saying, "This is my body and this is my blood." This act directly connects Melchizedek's gesture with the new covenant introduced by Jesus, highlighting the continuity and depth of the symbolism. By offering these elements, Melchizedek points to the future covenant between God and humanity through Christ. This gesture of Melchizedek can also be seen as a representation of hospitality and communion. In ancient culture, sharing a meal was a sign of friendship and alliance. By offering bread and wine, Melchizedek not only acknowledges Abraham's victory, but also establishes a bond of mutual respect and support. This act of hospitality reflects the importance of community and spiritual relationships, showing how moments of sharing can strengthen bonds and reaffirm commitments. Melchizedek's gesture can also be understood as an affirmation of Abraham's divine mission. By offering him bread and wine, Melchizedek recognizes and validates Abraham's journey, strengthening his faith and determining his future path. This recognition is crucial, as it reinforces the idea that Abraham is following a path blessed by God, a path that will be crucial for the development of the biblical narrative and the fulfillment of divine promises. The simplicity of bread and wine contrasts with the depth of their meaning. In many cultures, these elements are basic and essential, but in the biblical context, they gain a spiritual dimension that goes beyond their alimentary function. They become symbols of divine sustenance, communion, and promise, fundamental elements in any believer's faith life. By offering these elements, Melchizedek inserts himself into this rich tradition of symbolism and meaning. This act also highlights the connection between the physical and the spiritual in the life of faith. The physical sustenance provided by bread and wine parallels the spiritual sustenance that God offers. This parallel emphasizes the holistic view of biblical faith, where the physical and the spiritual are intrinsically linked. By offering these elements, Melchizedek exemplifies this connection, showing that divine care encompasses all dimensions of life. Thus, bread and wine serve as a constant reminder of God's presence and provision. They remind us that just as Abraham was sustained and blessed, we too can trust in divine faithfulness in our own lives. This lasting symbolism transcends the specific narrative and applies to all generations of believers, offering a continuous source of inspiration and hope. Furthermore, Melchizedek's offering of bread and wine can be seen as an anticipation of the future blessings promised to Abraham. These blessings include the promise of numerous descendants and a prosperous land. By receiving bread and wine, Abraham is, in a way, experiencing a preview of these promises, a tangible confirmation of God's faithfulness. Through this gesture, Melchizedek reinforces the certainty that divine promises will be fulfilled. Finally, the figure of Melchizedek and his gesture of offering bread and wine to Abraham serve as a bridge between the Old and New Testaments. He is mentioned again in the letter to the Hebrews as a type of Christ, an eternal priest who prefigures Jesus' priesthood. This connection between Melchizedek and Jesus highlights the continuity and depth of the biblical narrative, showing how seemingly simple elements can have profound and lasting meanings. The symbolism of bread and wine, initiated by Melchizedek, finds its full fulfillment in Jesus, linking past, present, and future in an unbreakable bond of faith and promise. Now let's address the important blessing that Melchizedek confers upon Abraham and its impact on the biblical and spiritual narrative. The blessing that Melchizedek confers upon Abraham is one of the most significant moments in the biblical narrative, highlighting the profound connection between the divine and the human. When Melchizedek blesses Abraham, he is not only acknowledging Abraham's military victory, but also reaffirming the divine mission entrusted to him. This blessing is an act of great spiritual importance, reflecting Melchizedek's authority and special role as a priest of the Most High God. Melchizedek pronounces his blessing in a clear and powerful manner. "Blessed be Abraham by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." This declaration is rich in meaning. First, it recognizes Abraham as chosen and favored by God, emphasizing the special relationship between Abraham and the Creator. Moreover, by praising God for Abraham's victory, Melchizedek reinforces the idea that all of Abraham's achievements are, in fact, divine gifts. Melchizedek's blessing not only legitimizes Abraham's leadership, but also confirms God's faithfulness to his promises. This moment is a reaffirmation of the divine promises made to Abraham, including the promise of numerous descendants and a prosperous land. Melchizedek, as a priest, acts as an intermediary, channeling God's blessing to Abraham and strengthening his faith. This act of blessing is therefore a crucial point in Abraham's spiritual journey, giving him strength and courage to continue his mission. The impact of this blessing is felt not only by Abraham, but also by his future generations. Melchizedek's blessing resonates through time, echoing in the history of the people of Israel and in the Judeo-Christian tradition. It serves as a constant reminder of God's faithfulness and the importance of trusting in his promises. The figure of Melchizedek, with his spiritual authority, offers a divine confirmation that transcends Abraham's own life, reaching future generations. Moreover, Melchizedek's blessing to Abraham underscores the importance of spiritual intercession. Melchizedek, as a priest, has the authority to bless and intercede on behalf of God, showing the importance of the priest's role as a mediator between God and men. This intercession is vital for the maintenance of faith and for the continuous connection with the divine. Melchizedek's blessing, therefore, is not just an isolated act, but part of a larger pattern of intercession and blessings that permeates the biblical history. The interaction between Melchizedek and Abraham also highlights the universality of divine blessing. Melchizedek, who does not belong to Abraham's lineage or the people of Israel, recognizes and blesses Abraham, showing that God's blessing is not limited by borders or lineages. This universality is an important theme that recurs in the Bible, showing that God's grace and blessing are available to all who seek Him with faith and sincerity. Abraham's attitude towards the blessing is equally significant. By receiving Melchizedek's blessing, Abraham demonstrates humility and recognition of Melchizedek's spiritual authority. He accepts the blessing with gratitude, recognizing God's hand in his victories and in his life. This recognition and acceptance are fundamental to Abraham's journey of faith, showing that he is willing to follow divine direction and accept the spiritual guidance offered to him. This moment of blessing is also a precursor to future covenants and divine promises. Melchizedek's blessing to Abraham can be seen as an anticipation of the covenant that God will make with Abraham, promising him numerous descendants and a land for his people. Melchizedek, with his blessing, is reaffirming the divine intention and preparing the way for the covenant that will be formalized later. This connection between blessing and covenant is crucial to understanding the biblical narrative and the continuity of God's promises. Melchizedek's blessing to Abraham also has profound theological implications. In the New Testament, especially in the letter to the Hebrews, Melchizedek is cited as a figure who prefigures Christ, the eternal high priest. Melchizedek's blessing to Abraham is seen as an anticipation of the eternal blessing that Christ offers to all believers. This connection between Melchizedek and Christ reinforces the importance and depth of the blessing, showing that it has ramifications that go beyond the immediate context and reach eternity. The way Melchizedek's blessing is presented in the Bible also underscores Melchizedek's spiritual and moral authority. He is not just a political leader but a priest with the authority to bless and intercede on behalf of God. This authority is recognized by Abraham, who responds with respect and gratitude. The interaction between the two leaders is an example of how spiritual authority is valued and recognized in the biblical tradition. Finally, Melchizedek's blessing to Abraham leaves us with a powerful image of faith, obedience, and recognition of divine authority. This moment in the biblical narrative is a turning point that reinforces the importance of divine blessing and spiritual intercession. Melchizedek, with his blessing, strengthens Abraham and confirms his mission, leaving a legacy that resonates through the generations and continues to inspire and strengthen the faith of believers to this day. Now let's explore how Melchizedek is seen as a prefiguration of Christ, highlighting the universality and eternity of Jesus' priesthood. Melchizedek is a figure who appears in the Old Testament and reappears in the New Testament, with renewed and expanded significance. He is often seen as a prefiguration of Jesus Christ, especially in relation to the eternal and universal priesthood. This connection is particularly highlighted in the letter to the Hebrews, where Melchizedek is described as a figure who prefigures Christ, the eternal high priest. The link between Melchizedek and Jesus Christ begins with their unique and uncommon characteristics. Melchizedek is described as King of Righteousness and King of Peace, titles that are clearly applicable to Jesus. Moreover, he is presented as a priest without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life. This description is fundamental to understanding the eternal nature of his priesthood, a quality that is essentially Christological. Jesus, like Melchizedek, is an eternal priest, whose priesthood is not based on human lineages, but on divine order. The letter to the Hebrews explores this connection in detail, stating that Jesus is a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. This means that, unlike Levitical priests who served for a limited time and were succeeded by others, Jesus' priesthood is eternal and unchangeable. This eternity of the priesthood is a central point of Christian faith, indicating that Jesus' intercession and mediation are always present and accessible to believers. Moreover, the universality of Melchizedek's priesthood is another aspect that aligns with Jesus' mission. Melchizedek was not restricted to one nation or a specific group of people. His priesthood was universal, encompassing all who sought God. Similarly, Jesus came to save and intercede for all humanity, not just a particular group. This universality is an important theme in the New Testament, which emphasizes the inclusion of all peoples in God's plan of salvation. Melchizedek's offering of bread and wine also finds a significant parallel in Jesus' Last Supper. During the Last Supper, Jesus used bread and wine to institute the Eucharist, saying that the bread was his body and the wine was his blood. This direct connection between the two events underscores the continuity and depth of the symbolism. By offering bread and wine to Abraham, Melchizedek was in a way prefiguring the new covenant that Jesus would establish with his death and resurrection. The blessing that Melchizedek confers upon Abraham can also be seen as a prefiguration of the blessing that Jesus brings to humanity. Melchizedek blesses Abraham in the name of the Most High God, recognizing his divine mission and victory. Similarly, Jesus blesses believers, offering them salvation and a new life in communion with God. This blessing is a point of connection between the Old and New Testaments, showing the continuity of God's plan for humanity's redemption. The priesthoods of Melchizedek and Jesus also share an important characteristic. Both are ordained directly by God, without the need for a human lineage or succession. This direct ordination reinforces the legitimacy and authority of their priesthoods, showing that they are divinely instituted and do not depend on human structures. In the case of Jesus, this is particularly emphasized in the letter to the Hebrews, which highlights his superiority over the Levitical priesthood. Additionally, Melchizedek is a figure who transcends the cultural and religious barriers of his time, just like Jesus. Melchizedek appears as a priest of a different order, not tied to Israel's established traditions. He is a priest for all, a figure that points to the inclusion and universality of the divine message. Similarly, Jesus broke cultural and religious barriers, preaching a message of love and salvation for all, regardless of their origin or status. The figure of Melchizedek, with his unique combination of king and priest, also anticipates the dual nature of Jesus as king and high priest. Jesus is often referred to as the King of Kings, but also as the high priest who intercedes for us before God. This dual function is rare and significant, as it combines temporal authority with spiritual. By being both king and priest, Melchizedek provides a model for this combination, which is fully realized in Jesus. The absence of a specific genealogy for Melchizedek is another point of connection with Jesus. While Jesus' genealogy is traced in the Gospels, his priesthood does not depend on this lineage. Instead, like Melchizedek, his priesthood is established by God and is eternal. This absence of a specific priestly lineage underscores the unique and divine nature of both priesthoods, indicating that they are established and maintained by God himself. Finally, the connection between Melchizedek and Jesus reinforces the message that God's plan for redemption is comprehensive and eternal. Melchizedek appears briefly in the biblical narrative, but his importance and impact are profound. He prefigures Christ in a way that underscores the continuity and depth of God's salvation plan. Jesus, as a priest according to the order of Melchizedek, fulfills and surpasses this prefiguration, offering a redemption that is eternal and universal. Now let's explore Melchizedek's role as king and priest of Salem, and how this contributes to his uniqueness and theological importance. Melchizedek is a unique figure in the Bible, standing out as both king and priest of Salem. This rare and powerful combination underscores the depth of his role and the theological importance he carries. The city of Salem, generally identified with Jerusalem, is a central point in biblical and spiritual history, and the fact that Melchizedek is its spiritual and political leader further reinforces his relevance. As king of Salem, Melchizedek exercises temporal authority that is recognized and respected. Salem, which means peace, is a city that represents justice and tranquility. Melchizedek, whose name means king of righteousness, embodies these values in his leadership. His kingship is not just a matter of political power, but of promoting justice and peace in his city. This combination of justice and peace is fundamental to understanding his role and his lasting impact on biblical tradition. Melchizedek's role as a priest is equally significant. He is described as a priest of the Most High God, a title that underscores his direct connection with the divine. As a priest, Melchizedek has the authority to intercede on behalf of the people, offer sacrifices, and pronounce blessings. His position as a priest is notable because it is not based on the Levitical lineage, but is a direct order from God, indicating a form of priesthood that is universal and eternal. This dual role of Melchizedek, as king and priest, makes him an exceptional figure. In biblical tradition, these two roles were generally separated, with kings focusing on political leadership and priests on spiritual leadership. Melchizedek, however, combines these two functions in one person, offering an integrated vision of leadership that is both spiritual and temporal. This unique combination prefigures the future leadership of Jesus Christ, who is also described as king and high priest. The city of Salem, under Melchizedek's leadership, becomes a symbol of justice and peace, reflecting the values he embodies. The identification of Salem with Jerusalem adds a layer of significance, as Jerusalem would become a crucial spiritual and political center for the people of Israel, and later for Christianity. Melchizedek, as king of Salem, sets a precedent for the future importance of Jerusalem as a city of great spiritual significance. The absence of a specific genealogy for Melchizedek is an aspect that reinforces his uniqueness. Unlike many biblical characters whose lineages are carefully recorded, Melchizedek appears without any mention of his ancestors or descendants. This suggests that his priesthood and kingship are directly ordained by God, independent of human traditions. This absence of genealogy points to the eternal nature of his priesthood, a theme that is revisited in the New Testament in relation to Jesus. Melchizedek's relationship with Abraham is another crucial point that underscores his importance. By blessing Abraham, Melchizedek not only recognizes Abraham's divine mission, but also legitimizes his own spiritual authority. Abraham, by accepting Melchizedek's blessing and offering him a tithe, acknowledges Melchizedek's superior authority as a priest of the Most High God. This interaction between the two leaders is a key moment in the biblical narrative, highlighting the importance of spiritual leadership and divine blessing. Melchizedek is mentioned again in the Bible, especially in the letter to the Hebrews, where his figure is used to illustrate the superiority of Jesus' priesthood. This comparison not only elevates Melchizedek, but also helps clarify the nature of Christ's priesthood. Like Melchizedek, Jesus is an eternal priest, not based on human lineage but directly ordained by God. This connection underscores the continuity of the divine plan and the depth of the symbolism contained in Melchizedek's figure. Melchizedek's leadership as king and priest offers a vision of a type of government that is both just and spiritual. He is an example of how leadership can be exercised with integrity and justice, promoting peace and prosperity. Melchizedek, as a figure of authority combining temporal power with spiritual authority, offers a model of leadership that is both moral and effective. This model resonates through the centuries, offering valuable lessons for leaders of all eras. The figure of Melchizedek, with his combination of kingship and priesthood, points to the future coming of a leader who would also be both king and priest. This messianic expectation is fully realized in Jesus Christ, whose life and ministry fulfill and surpass the prefigurations contained in Melchizedek's figure. Jesus, as king and high priest, offers leadership that is both spiritual and temporal, encompassing all dimensions of human life. The importance of Melchizedek is reinforced by how he is treated in later scriptures. His figure is revisited and expanded upon, especially in New Testament texts that place him in an even more significant light. This continued relevance of Melchizedek throughout the Bible underscores his theological importance and the depth of his impact. He is not just a historical figure, but an archetype of eternal and universal spiritual values. In summary, Melchizedek, as king and priest of Salem, is a figure that challenges conventional categories and offers an integrated vision of spiritual and temporal leadership. His absence of a specific genealogy, his blessing to Abraham, and his position as a priest of the Most High God make him a unique and powerful figure in the biblical narrative. Melchizedek, with his combination of justice, peace, and spiritual authority, prefigures the future leadership of Jesus Christ, whose eternal and universal priesthood fulfills and surpasses the model established by Melchizedek. Melchizedek's story, therefore, is a bridge that links the Old and New Testaments, offering a continuous and profound vision of God's plan for redemption and just leadership. The journey through the enigmatic figure of Melchizedek reveals deep connections between the Old and New Testaments, highlighting the importance of just and spiritual leadership. Melchizedek, as king and priest of Salem, offers a unique vision of authority that combines justice, peace, and spirituality. His interaction with Abraham, the offering of bread and wine, and his blessing carry meanings that transcend time, pointing directly to the mission of Jesus Christ. Melchizedek teaches us about the importance of divine intercession and trust in God's promises. His role as an eternal priest prefigures Christ's priesthood, reaffirming the universality and eternity of the salvation plan. Jesus, as a priest according to the order of Melchizedek, fulfills this prefiguration, offering redemption that is accessible to all. Just as Melchizedek blessed Abraham, Christ's blessing is available to all of us, offering spiritual sustenance and a promise of eternal life. Melchizedek's story is a powerful reminder of God's faithfulness and the importance of following his guidance in our lives. Now, I ask you, how can you apply these lessons of just leadership and faith in your daily life? Are you ready to accept the blessing and mission that God has for you? Reflecting on Melchizedek's story can inspire a new perspective on your own spiritual journey. If you want to continue learning about profound and spiritually enriching topics, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Join us on this journey of discovery and spiritual growth. Let's explore the riches of the Scriptures together and find new ways to apply these teachings in our daily lives.
Let the Word of God touch your heart, like a light guiding you through the darkest moments. Every step in faith is a journey filled with hope. We are never alone on this path, for He is always by our side. Open your heart and let His love transform you, helping you spread that light to those around you. Let the Word of God touch your heart, like a light guiding you through the darkest moments. Every step in faith is a journey filled with hope. We are never alone on this path, for He is always by our side. Open your heart and let His love transform you, helping you spread that light to those around you.